Hello again, listener, and welcome to the How to Survive podcast, where we take films, discuss them, dissect them, and discuss how we would survive if we found ourselves living in them. My name is Joe, and I'm joined as ever by Chris. Hello, Chris.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, but I think I deserve a little bit more respect for producing this podcast.
Go on.
Well, I've been planning for this podcast for years. I've even built this incredibly elaborate underground podcast studio for the purpose, and I dragged you out of that burning car wreck, Joe, and you haven't even said thank you.
Listen, I just want to leave. Can I please just leave?
Okay, but only in about 45 to 50 minutes time.
Okay, sure. So, of course, the movie is 10 Cloverfield Lane. If you didn't get it from that elaborate intro, then probably you haven't seen the film.
And if you haven't seen the film, then make sure you go and watch it beforehand.
Yeah.
Before you listen to this podcast, because we are a spoilerific podcast.
Yeah.
We don't worry about treading on anyone's spoiler toes.
No.
Anyone who's listening to this podcast, you have been warned.
Yep. So pause it, go off to your local picture house, and watch 10 Cloverfield Lane, and then report back here for debrief.
Yeah. And make sure you do, because there are, as you might imagine, twists to be spoiled.
Yes. So 10 Cloverfield Lane is the movie. Dan Trachtenberg is the director. And
John Goodman is the actor. Mary Elizabeth Winstead is the actress. John Gallagher Jr. is the co-actor.
Co-actor?
I don't know. Supporting actor.
Supporting actor. Yep. So let's just run through the plot, because my assumption is, even though it's a fairly new film, this podcast is still going to be relevant and popular 50 or 60 years in the future.
Sure.
So, 10 Cloverfield Lane tells the story of Michelle, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Mm-hmm.
She's broken up with her boyfriend and is leaving town. As she drives, we learn through her car radio that blackouts have swept across the southern seaboard of the United States. But before we can learn more, she's involved in a terrible crash and driven completely off the road. When she wakes up, her leg is badly injured. She's chained to a wall in what appears to be a concrete cell, and she has IVs in her arm. Obviously, she panics a bit, wants to find out what's going on. And shortly, she learns that she's being kept there by a man he claims he's keeping her alive.
Mm-hmm.
His name's Howard, but he's scant on the details of what's going on, just that he's keeping her alive. He's played by John Goodman.
Mm-hmm.
He assures her that she was involved in a car accident, and he found her and brought her to his underground bomb shelter because there was an attack taking place on America.
Mm-hmm.
She's skeptical, even when she talks to another inhabitant of the bunker, Emmett, played by John Gallagher Jr., who assures her that he helped Howard to build the bunker, and the only reason that he's there is because he sought shelter there himself. She previously thought he'd been kidnapped as well, but he said, no, there was an attack, and I came in here for my own protection.
Yeah, neither of them know the exact nature of the attack they think has taken place.
Just that an attack has definitely taken place, unlike anything they've seen before. Still unsure, Michelle makes an attempt to escape, and as she's fumbling with the last lock outside the airlock, a neighbour arrives at the house, covered in scabs and contusions and bleeding from all sorts of orifice. And it becomes evident that an attack has indeed taken place, and that she begins to believe Howard's claim.
Sure. That
there is a poisonous gas in the outside atmosphere, which seems to give people horrible skin, at least, and lead to their untimely death. Mm-hmm. So with a renewed sense of trust, the makeshift family become refreshed and enthusiastic about their life in the bunker, playing games, watching movies, and enjoying meals together. That's until the air filter fails, and Michelle is sent through the air vent to turn it off. On the other side of the vent, she discovers a room where it becomes abundantly clear that a murder has taken place. The word help has been scratched into the inside of a ceiling hatch, with bloody handprints on the glass, and a blood-covered earring is found on the floor. The earring, she notices, belongs to a girl from a photo that Howard showed her earlier. Now, Howard explained that the girl in the picture was Megan, his daughter. However, when Michelle shows the picture to Emmett, he says that isn't Megan. That is a local girl who went missing a number of years ago. Mm-hmm. Suddenly, everything becomes a lot more sinister, and Emmett and Michelle begin to hatch a plan to escape. Fundamental to their escape is making a makeshift hazmat suit from an old shower curtain. So obviously, if they have to go outside the hatch and there is poisonous gas, they're not going to want to breathe it in.
Which is explained as well, by the way, that Michelle as we see as early as the first shot of the film, is a fashion design student.
Yes.
So it doesn't come out of nowhere that she
knows how
able
to make a suit of this
Exactly.
kind. So while they're making this suit, they obviously have to use things like scissors and Stanley knives. But Howard, being the crazy man he is, notices things are getting moved around, gets wind of it, and he confronts them. And he points out that if they don't tell him the truth, he will dissolve them in a vat of acid, which he keeps hidden under the sink. Emmett confesses and takes the full blame, explaining that he just wanted to sort of take control of the situation so that Michelle would respect him as much as she respects Howard. He's being a bit duplicitous here. So he says, "Can you forgive me?" Howard says, "Yes, I forgive you," and then shoots him in the head.
He very literally takes the bullet for Michelle.
Exactly. So Michelle, with a renewed sense of energy, continues to work on the suit until it is discovered by Howard. A fight breaks out and Howard chases her around until she kicks a vat of acid at him.
The same vat of acid.
Yeah.
He doesn't have multiple vats
of acid lying around.
Yeah.
It's the same vat from earlier. And the acid, well, it's rushing towards him and he sort of jumps in the air, loses his footing and lands face first in the acid.
Yeah.
He's letting out a horrible yelp. The acid causes a fire to break out. Obviously, there's lots of sort of electric circuitry.
Yeah, causes an electrical fire.
Yes, but Michelle is able to escape through the same air vent as before, taking her hazmat suit with her. She breaks the final lock using a dry ice spray, a trick that she learned from a story that Howard told earlier about his Navy days. And once outside in the outside world, she reaches a car, but her suit gets snagged and cut open. But she patches it up very quickly using duct tape. And then she notices above a flock of geese flying past. She deduces that the air must be breathable again. So obviously the poison's worn off. She takes off her helmet, breathes a deep breath, and that's the end of the film. Except it's not the end of the film. She hears a noise humming in the distance, climbs on top of the car for a better look, and sees a spaceship flying around, bobbing and weaving in the air. So she dashes across the yard and tries to get into another car that was parked nearby. It was the car belonging to the neighbour, if you remember from earlier, who tried to get in the house. But she sets off a car alarm, alerting the marauding spaceship that she is indeed there. So over it comes, chases her into the porch of the bunker, where the dead body of the car's owner is. So she's able to get to the keys and turn off the alarm just in time, because as she's sort of hiding in the dark, and the alien's membranous appendage comes through a flap in the door, it starts sniffing. I suppose sniffing is
like a sort of worm creature.
It's weird, isn't it?
Larval type thing.
But is that an appendage of the spaceship?
No, you see it come out of the spaceship, but it's dropped off, I believe.
Right.
So it's like a separate organism
from the spaceship,
like an attack dog, but
a
very wormy, larval sort of attack dog.
Right. The appendage, or the worm, whatever you want to call it, retracts out of the building, and Michelle makes a break for the large farmhouse at the end of the yard. As she approaches the house, it lights up, revealing that the spaceship was hidden behind it. The spaceship then sort of starts firing this green gas.
Yeah, which we assume is the gas that killed the neighbour.
Yeah.
So Howard had mentioned.
But she puts on her gas mask from earlier that she made from an old Coke bottle and gets in the van for safety. The van is then lifted into the air by one of the spaceship's tentacles, I guess you'd call them, feelers. And as the ship is bringing the van with Michelle in it closer to what can only be described as its mouth, the quick-thinking Michelle grabs a bottle of whiskey and makes a Molotov cocktail, which she throws with perfect accuracy into the gaping mouth, causing the spaceship to explode, dropping her on the floor. She's fine. She climbs out of the ruined car and makes her way to the other unharmed car, gets in it and drives off down the road. And as she's driving, she hears a distress call over the radio coming from Houston, saying we need help from any survivors, anyone with any experience with anything. Come to Houston. And so she turns towards Houston, and that's how the film really ends.
Yes.
So it's quite a lengthy explanation, but I think that's necessary because it is such a convoluted plot.
Sure.
It's many films. How many films are in this film, Chris?
Well, so I think it's 2/3 of one film and 1/3 of another. quite, or like, you know, 3/4 of one film, and you know there are 3 acts, aren't there?
Yeah,
basically.
right.
It's like, so the final act is the alien gear change.
Yeah, well, there's 3 plus 1, isn't there?
Yeah,
You've got the film itself.
Yeah, it does have 3 complete acts. Like when she
When she
left
gets
the
there,
hatch.
orientation, then
life is okay,
Yeah.
and then
need to escape.
and then that concludes with the escape,
Yeah,
and then there's the alien bit.
yeah.
So I watched this film with my girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
She's not a big horror movie fan, or, you know, tense film fan.
No.
But for some reason she was up for this film. We were watching it in the cinema. She was fine. She actually found it quite tense. You know, found it hard to watch in some places because of the tension and the, you know, threat. From the point at which the alien appears onwards, she watched the whole thing, and even turned to me at one point and said, "This has gotten a bit silly, hasn't it?" And I said, "Yes," because it is weird. Right, because
it's such a gear change.
So, like, it's difficult to talk about, even like, because I saw it a few days ago, and I even coming out of the film, I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. It's still difficult to talk about, like, you know, a few days later, and I think part of the problem is that it feels initially like it's come out of nowhere.
What, the aliens stuff?
Yeah. So because there's not been the hint at any stage that there might be aliens involved.
Well, there is, because John Goodman says, I think it's Martians.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. It feels like that, but actually, there are hints throughout the film, right? So obviously, the most obvious one is the woman at the door, because you've got the opening part of the film. You're not sure if there's even anything that's happened. You know, it could just be a straightforward kidnapping thing, right? But the neighbour at the door with the sores and the blood, and then she starts banging her head against the window, right? Which is a very affecting scene. You know, unless you assume that it's an incredibly elaborate ruse on the part of Howard, that he's somehow paid this woman to be on standby with prosthetic makeup and all that.
I did think that for a while.
Yeah, but that would have been terrible.
Stretch, yeah.
So, you know, there's that part of it. Emmett and Howard both independently say that they saw various things or heard various things that give you the idea. And, you know, we grow to trust Howard as we grow to... we grow to trust Emmett as we grow to trust Howard less throughout the film.
Yeah, he's kind of he's an idiot, but he doesn't mean any harm. No. If you know what I mean,
Yeah. So you're more inclined, as the film goes on, to believe that there may actually have been some sort of incident.
Yeah.
And I think the escape attempt is motivated less by... a belief that everything's fine than it is about getting away from Howard.
Yes, who is absolutely insane.
Yes, but they actually play off his insanity because, as you say, he does say it might have been the Martians, and also, which I laughed at in the cinema, and also Emmett at one stage says, has Howard told you about his like crazy space worm thereries?
Right.
And it is space worms essentially. They're alien worms. That I don't remember the exact line, but it is something about something worms, like Martian worms or something like that. And so I assume we're gonna talk about the marketing stuff later.
Yeah, we'll come to that because there's a lot to be said, I think.
Yeah. So
I mean, obviously, listen, if you're new to the How to Survive podcast, we are going to talk about how to survive in a film. Yeah. But we like to talk about the film in sort of
give it a context.
Yeah, exactly.
Beforehand, because part of the marketing, as with the original Cloverfield, is this whole alternate reality game thing. Right. So if anyone doesn't know what it is, you can sort of look it up, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because, to be honest, I don't know that much about it, and I don't have all that much interest in it. But there's clues left around the internet and things that you can go to various places. Someone found coordinates and then went there and found a box that had elements that were from the film.
Okay.
So at one point they're putting together a puzzle. Yeah. And there are missing pieces. And so in the box that this person found were the missing pieces of the puzzle.
That's really funny.
So imagine having found that box and then seeing it in the cinema. That would have been an amazing thing. Yeah. And it's, trying to, make it feel as though it's part of the real world.
Yeah.
And a part of that is tying it into the previous Cloverfield film, and so there's the Slusho company, which is from the previous Cloverfield film, and there are also like various satellite companies that were referred to in this game that Howard works for. And so, you know, the notion that there might be involved somehow in calling this alien race or whatever. I don't,
sure.
But I don't know that much about it. That's my very broad understanding.
Top level idea.
Yeah. But so there are actually, in fact, you know, it's not completely out of left field, but I think, you know, there is a reason that it doesn't feel completely satisfying.
Yes. I mean, I've got some notes on the sort of political economy of the film. Right. Originally, it was called Valencia.
Right.
And later, The Cellar. Right. Neither of which are Cloverfield, you'll notice. And I don't think those are... I mean, I suspect Bad Robot will dress that up as, we were shooting it under secret...
Yeah.
I don't think that's true.
No, I don't think that's true either.
Basically, I've taken this from the Wikipedia page, so I'm going to paraphrase it. Basically, the filmmakers, when they were making it, noticed similarities to Cloverfield, right? And decided to make the movie what Abrams called a blood relative or spiritual successor to the film.
Sure.
But Trachtenberg, the director, has stated that it doesn't take place in the same fictional universe as Cloverfield.
Okay.
Meaning that basically everything you described is nonsense.
Yeah.
Even though they set it up so that the satellites...
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But because they didn't want it to be a sequel for some reason, they just wanted to stick the name Cloverfield on it to basically get people in the seats, right?
Yeah. So I think ultimately it's a flawed... Well, it depends which way you look at it. Creatively, I think it's a flawed idea because people who are fans of the original film are going to expect one of two things. If they don't know anything about 10 Cloverfield Lane, they're going to expect one of two things, which is either that Cloverfield, which is officially or unofficially sort of the name for the monster, right?
Yeah, or Clover,
Yeah. And so they're going to anticipate it being something to do with that monster, or they're going to expect the shaky camera, because those are the two things that Cloverfield is known for, the big monster and the camera work.
Yeah,
right?
It was kind of the peak and the death of the found footage.
Yeah, well, it did it very well though. Like
what I mean is that I don't remember anything coming out after that was any good.
Yeah. So it what it did was very good, and I don't think that creatively the decision to like have this film relate to that is justified, but financially it's definitely because I'm not sure that if it was called The Cellar, either of us would have heard of it or we'd be talking about it on this podcast now.
No, exactly.
Right? We've both paid to go and see it. Millions and millions of other people would have done the same just because it's called Cloverfield.
Yeah. Well, I love the marketing of Cloverfield, the original 2008 film. And it was exactly what you'd expect from a J.J. Abrams production of that time.
Sure.
Especially what you're saying about the tie-ins with other media. That all comes from the Lost experience. Sure. Which any fans of Lost will remember if they were as ardent fans as you and I. Like things like the Dharma Initiative, the company in Lost, had various websites where you could pick out clues about what's going to happen in that series, or you'd find out the history of the island, and you could track the routes taken by Flight 815. Yeah,
you could see websites that were supposedly set up by people who were trying to, like conspiracy theorists, trying to find out what happened to the plane.
But they were actually marketing execs.
Exactly.
But it's ingenious marketing because it's so immersive, and it makes it feel that much more authentic. But with this, I feel that they've gone, all right, you know what, let's put Cloverfield in this film so that we get people in seats, which is a very cynical marketing tactic.
Sure.
But fine, it works. I'm not gonna argue with that. But I think it comes apart as soon as it comes into contact with fresh air, because things like we said, you said the Howard allegedly works for this satellite company that crashes at the end of Cloverfield.
At the end of the original Cloverfield, you can see a satellite crash in the distance, and there's theoretically that's what wakes up the monster.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah,
but because they've then come out and said this isn't the same universe.
Yeah.
When you're like, well, why call it Cloverfield, and why have what is essentially? I mean, if it was the same attack, right?
Yeah.
Coordinated in a different place, then why not? Why not just do that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, the reason is because the film was finished before they made this decision.
So do you think when the film they wrapped, they said we're done?
Yeah.
Were the aliens in it?
Yes, I do. I think the aliens were always in the film, but I don't think that the signpost that gets knocked over
at the end of
the film with 10 Cloverfield Lane written on it was. Right, and so there is, they might be doing this thing like a sort of Twilight Zone thing.
Yeah.
So it's like an anthology and, monster, like different stories about monsters, right? I would have preferred it almost if they went down that road to have it nothing to do with aliens at all.
Exactly, yeah.
Because like the tagline for the film on the posters is monsters come in many forms,
exactly.
right?
So if you spend the whole film expecting an alien to show up, and it's actually no, John Goodman was the monster.
Yeah, well, like then it's like Cloverfield is like a broad term for like a monstrous presence or whatever, and then that could be you could have all sorts of things, right?
The Cloverfield influences.
Yeah, like the Cloverfield experiment, whatever, right? But to have it so close to actually tying in. Like, to have like aliens, which are, whether, I don't know what Cloverfield was, the monster in Cloverfield. Is he like a sea beast? Has he fallen in on the satellite? Who knows, right? But, because it's never explained in the text anyway, the film. So, like, to have it so close, to the layman, to Cloverfield, like, people are going to watch this film and then go, oh, so was Cloverfield an alien then?
Well, no, that's exactly it, because it's only in researching the film for this podcast that I realised it wasn't the same attack.
No, exactly. It's nothing to do with it. It's a different universe for all things. Because also, like, if this takes place in a post Cloverfield world, right? When John Goodman says, oh, it might be the monster, like, he as a conspiracy nut, he would be saying, oh, it might be like that big sea monster that came out and destroyed New York that we had to blow up with a nuclear bomb. It might be another one of them or something. He wouldn't be going, oh, it's Martians, and people going, haha, Martians. Like, exactly. Imagine if anything like that could exist. Like, so it's a totally different universe. This can't exist in the same universe as the original Cloverfield.
But you could have it as the same attack.
Exactly, you could, but
and
it's not.
He even says, like, it's a coordinated attack. They had the first wave and they had the second wave. So the first film could be the first wave.
Yeah, but it like, that's what frustrates me so much is that because it isn't anything to do with that. So I would have rather they just had the seller, right? And John Goodman is the monster, Howard is the monster, and they make the whole film like in those 3 rooms, and then she gets out, and then you could even leave it ambiguous, right, as to what has happened outside, because it's almost like secondary to the point of the film, which is this monster who's in the bunker basically. But even if they had the aliens, I would have far preferred it if, rather than Michelle's sort of middling response to it, which is literally she gets on a car and sees this spaceship, and then there's a shot of her and she goes, oh, come on, right? Which is a very dangerous line to have in the film, because I'm sure that a lot of audience members are probably thinking the same thing when they see the spaceship.
Like, the same thing.
Exactly, yeah. So after that point, the film strays into like Mary Sue territory, because I'm totally on board with her, like, thematically, the journey that Michelle takes, right, from being a person who always runs away from everything to a person who confronts her fears and her the dangers that she faces, right, is brilliant. And all the things that she uses to her survival, like to help her survive, are things that make total sense, right? And you believe that she's a person who is equipped for all of the things that she does.
Yes.
Like making the boiler suit, escaping through the vents, like
making a Molotov cocktail.
Exactly, being but that's the thing that annoys me, is that why, when presumably she's just a normal person, she doesn't lose her mind when she sees an alien spacecraft. I don't know. So like I would have much preferred it if she'd like climbed out of the bunker, finally escaped, and got up, and it's like some sort of War of the Worlds-esque, where the whole country's been sort of terraformed, and there's that like horrible red stuff everywhere. Like if it was totally apocalyptic, or she she just like loses her mind or like collapses in like
fear. Or my other idea was she come out, and I was expecting it to be confronted by the Cloverfield from the first one. It would just be like walking in a distance, and she'd be like, "What the fuck?" Yeah, the end of The Mist.
Exactly. But it's weird in the way that it comes so close to being tied in properly, and just like skims the edge of it. So it's almost like it's not far away enough to be considered its own thing.
Yeah.
And it's not close enough to tie in perfectly.
Yeah. A bit of a Venn diagram going on, isn't there?
Yeah. It's a weird like thematic resemblance, but not enough to make it,
I think it sounds like we were both really down on the film.
Yeah, but
that's not necessarily the case.
But
it's got a bit of a bone to pick with the marketing of it.
Yeah, exactly. And also I think it's the fact that I like the first 3/4 of it so much.
Yeah.
And it's so well done that it's almost and the ending part is so apart from all of that that it almost feels like a different film entirely.
Yeah.
So
what the audience won't know is that during the recording of the introduction, I got confused a few times about what sort of happened, and that's, I think, because I was just like I couldn't tell because it was all CGI and all weird and stuff. Like, you had to explain to me that the worm thing that comes to attack her is detached.
Yeah, so what I think it is anyway. It's dark, isn't it? So it's difficult to tell
because the screen gets dark really quickly.
Yeah, it's like sunset in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's weird, and like you say, I don't want to be too down on the film because there are things that I really like about it. Like, so John Goodman is brilliant.
Oh yeah,
he's absolutely brilliant. This is like, I don't know, it's not, you don't want to say that he's made for this role.
No,
but he's very, very good at it.
Yeah, like exactly, yeah.
That
he's very creepy. He's a very imposing on-screen presence.
Yeah,
like I think anything you put him in, he's just got this bombastic personality.
Yeah,
even like say Barton Fink when he's in that, he hasn't got to say anything. He's just got to stand on screen and he dominates it.
But he's like the male equivalent of Kathy Bates in Misery.
Yeah,
like it's that level of quality of performance.
Exactly.
Like it's because he what I love about it is that his character for the most of the film just skirts the edge of like definitely being mad.
Yeah.
So he says things and then he gets drawn back from it. Like you go, oh, that's why he said that. And he actually meant this. Yeah, and actually maybe the reason he's so weird, like there's this stuff about his daughter.
Yeah.
And then
he's just really sad.
Yeah, like he's like that's quite tragic. Oh, he's in the Navy, so I get why he's like this a little bit.
Yeah.
And he's not holding a grudge against Michelle because he's letting her do the stitches on him.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it just keeps, and
he's mental but he's pragmatic.
Yeah, the Navy story about him like freezing the lock to lock it. That's funny.
Gives you a bit of humanity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like he's but then something else happens and he gets scarier and then like comes back from it a tiny bit, and it's very well judged and very well done. And I think Mary Elizabeth Winstead is Michelle rather is a great character as well. Like I said, a little bit Mary Sue.
So what do you mean by that? You keep saying that.
So Mary Sue is like I resent using the term a little bit because it's sort of it's in my head because people talk of Rey from Star Wars as being a Mary Sue, and that is a character, I think specifically a female character who is just good at everything. Right. Okay. Right. So like preternaturally good at everything.
So you can throw last week's character Erin would be a good example.
Yeah, exactly. But you could throw her into any situation and she'd just be like, oh, I can do that. Right. Yeah, it's fine. And that is what I think. Not in terms of like I don't believe that Michelle could make a Molotov cocktail. It's just that I don't think that any person would have the presence of mind when confronted with like a spaceship to do all that. Yeah. But and there were also some like really nice visual touches, which I picked up on some of them during the film, but I also read a couple of them afterwards. Go on. So the room that her bedroom, Michelle's bedroom, is half painted grey, or half grey and half pink. And so it's like, cold colour or warm colour, right? Sure. She starts off over on the grey side, and that's when she's like scared of Howard, scared of Emmett, right? Is fearful of everything, right? And then as she warms to the situation and like warms to Emmett, you see her lots over in the pink side. Sure. There's the scenes where she's talking to Emmett through the wall, and they're like, and she's up against the pink side, and then when Emmett dies, she goes back to the other side, and it's like exactly. It represents her mood. But there's also a very nice touch, which is the first time you see her in the room, and Howard comes in. Behind her is a broken light bulb. There's a light bulb that's off, and behind Howard is a light bulb that's on. Right. And then after the scene where she sees the woman dying outside, he replaces the light bulb with one that works, and it's like now you have an idea of what's going on.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of little sort of visual touches like that, which I think are really nice. And like, you know, it's sometimes you forget to talk about these sorts of things. Like Dan Trachtenberg is his first film.
He's done a few shorts, but this is his first.
Like, and there is an element of, I mean, you know, first film to get like a performance of this quality from John Goodman and from Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and to have these little bits of like visual touches and things like that. Like, you know, fair play to the guy.
Good presence of mind, doesn't it?
Yeah.
No, it's a very enjoyable film.
Yeah, it's very well crafted, I thought. I also like the just like a really subtle touch was John Goodman shaving.
Yeah, because he's like, after he kills Emmett, he shows up clean shaven. And
it's like there's no explanation for it, but it's just like, oh, that's like,
why has he done that?
Yeah, like what's made him think, like, because you think like, why has he shaved?
Yeah, so unsettling.
Yeah, like, like what is he thinking that he's gonna need a clean shaven face for?
It's very weird. I think we didn't really discuss it when we were doing the intro too much, but his obsession seems to be with, like, Emmett seems like a bit of an imposter in his overall plan, which is to keep Michelle as his stand-in daughter,
replacement daughter, as it's implied he had with the other girl
who was murdered. But it's assumed he murdered. So there's this scene where they're playing like charades, or like articulate, if you ever played that, where you have to describe something, the other person has to guess it. Yeah,
and he can't think of the word woman to relate to Michelle.
He keeps calling her little girl and little princess.
Little princess, yeah.
And everyone in the room and everyone in the cinema is just like sweating with embarrassment. And that's like, it's just a little tweak, like little quirks like that make him seem all the more unhinged.
Yeah,
and you realise that. It's just it's a bit sad and it's a bit dangerous.
Yeah. But it's a very, very good performance.
Basically. Yeah, it is, I mean, speaking of their relationship, it's kind of present from the start, where she wakes up in the room and he says, look, I'm going to keep you alive. I'm going to protect you. All you have to do is show me a bit of appreciation and you can survive. How do you feel about that?
I think it's like I said, you know, like this thing where Howard's just constantly skirting over the like madness like line. Is like, I love scenes like this in films where they're written to maximise the potential for misunderstanding.
Right.
Like if you just wrote everything, like just typed it out. Like if you read all of Howard's lines, like, look, I just want you to keep you alive. Like I dragged you out of your car wreck. Like, I'm sorry, like, you know, I just want a bit of appreciation or something, you know, like, you know, I just want a bit of appreciation. Like, just like the ambiguity of it is perfect. Like, it's just like makes it, like, the delivery makes it really creepy.
Exactly.
Early How to Survive tip for Howard. Just be a bit clearer.
Yeah.
Like, if you
information is power. Right?
Exactly. Like, why not go, hi, I know you're dazed and confused
and in shock and probably have a concussion.
Yeah. Why chain her up in there anyway?
I assume she could have.
I assume the brace is for her injured leg, right?
Yeah.
But why not? Like why put her in the most horrific looking room?
Yeah, I know. But then again, he's not a well man, is he?
No.
But do you think it's a bit of a Murphy's Law situation? Because the system appears to be, if you show him a certain level of appreciation and you keep in line with his house rules, you'll survive. But Murphy's Law states that in any given system, if something can go wrong, it will. Okay. So I postulate that when we're dealing with a violent and volatile individual like Howard, he will eventually kill you for the smallest infraction.
Okay. So
you leave the toilet seat down or up or whatever is your preference, he would shoot you in the head.
Possibly.
Or do you think because of the daddy-daughter vibe?
I think right from the off, Emmett, he's looking for an excuse to murder Emmett. Yeah. That's my interpretation of it. And I think that, like...
But do you think he would kill Michelle unless she tried to escape?
It depends what you believe his designs are on her. Like... Because it's never explicitly stated, and there's no reason other than just, you know, like, I suppose, world cynicism to think that there's any like sexual thing.
I almost think that's to the benefit of the film, because how often do you watch a man keeping a woman prisoner,
exactly,
and it's not a
sexual thing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But this. I think that it's a way of playing it safe, isn't it? You're saying that it's actually his deeply unhinged.
I think he is the best way of looking at his character is that he is actually just deeply unhinged, but
wants a daughter.
Yeah. In fact, when she's escaping through the air vent and he's trying to kill her, after his acid-ruined hand falls apart trying to grab hold of her, you can actually hear him screaming, "Please don't leave me."
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there is, like there's a hint that like, I'm not in any way endorsing his behaviour.
No.
But like
I think you are. I think you're saying that
I'm saying
any man in his situation would do exactly the same thing.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Like the previous Howard that we covered in this podcast, Howard Payne. I'm a big fan of both his motives and his behaviour. And that's Howard Payne from Speed.
Sure. The next big scene, I think, that gives us a bit of an indication about who we're dealing with.
Sure.
Is a scene where she tries to steal his keys.
Mm-hmm.
So Michelle starts flirting ostentatiously with Emmett in order to create a bit of a response from Howard.
Yeah.
So he gets upset and he gets right in her face and says, "Listen, I know what you're trying to do." But that allows her, this is all a part of a plan, to take the keys off of his belt in order to make a break for it.
Mm-hmm.
So she breaks a bottle over his head and sort of chucks Emmett on the floor and makes a run for the door and makes a good attempt at an escape. She would have gotten away if it hadn't been for the neighbour showing up and dying on the doorstep. So what does that tell us about Howard and his sort of what we're dealing with, Chris?
Yeah, like it's a weird plan, isn't it? Like it's a very strange leap of logic that she makes. Is she trying to make him jealous? I assume she's trying to make him jealous, right? Because she thinks that he has
designs on her.
Yeah,
or it could be that she's fully aware of the situation. Well, I think
she's trying to like show Emmett more respect than
more affection.
Yeah,
I think because all Howard wants is to be loved.
Sure,
and she's kind of like taking that power away from him.
Yeah,
because you can see. I mean, the way it's shot as well. Like she's just like all her body language is pointing. She's like facing Emmett. She's like giving all of her attention to
touching his hand. And all that sort
and
of
then you can see the way it's framed and everything. John Goodman sat at the end of the table, kind of like a distance from everyone else. And that's when he loses his temper. It's
another great dinner scene.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about last week.
Exactly. We're a big fan of dinner scenes.
Yeah. But it's like brilliant tension building, that whole scene.
And then he suddenly slammed his hand down. Yeah, it's horrible.
A quick question, because this might be useful when we're talking about How to Survive, right? The woman outside who tries to get in the bunker.
Yeah.
That I thought was like a very well done and very disturbing bit of the film.
Sure.
Does the gas make you mad?
Impossible to say, I think, given what we've got.
Yeah, but she seems to go from, please let me in, and then when she doesn't let her in, she starts saying, you bitch, and then she starts smashing her head against the glass.
Yeah, I guess she hasn't thought of any other. Yeah, I think you're right.
She might just be, I guess it's impossible for us to say.
Yeah, it could be she's mad with fear, it could be her whole family just died 10 minutes ago, and,
Yeah, she's hysterical, this is like her only hope, or whatever, but... Yeah, it's an interesting consideration for when we talk about How to Survive.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to mention that scene in particular at dinner tells us that John Goodman can be beaten with a bludgeon or, any stabbing. He is a human being after all, and a particularly big one. So, like you said earlier with Kathy Bates in Misery,
sure,
one of his like characteristics that make him quite so threatening, and the fact that he's such a big person.
Yeah,
and should he decide to sort of hit you with a big object, it will probably hurt a great deal. And if you wanted to move him or attack him, you'd do well with that because he's so large.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that he is implicitly a murderer.
Yeah, and he has a gun at all times.
Did he kill his daughter?
Did the daughter ever exist even?
Well, we see photos of two separate girls.
There's the one in the back of the book, right?
Yeah,
because she drops.
So there's the one. There's the school photo one, and then there's the one there's the school photo, which turns out to be someone that Emmett knows, who isn't his daughter, and then there's another girl. There's a photo of Howard and a girl, and she's wearing the Paris t-shirt,
right?
And I think that is his daughter.
No, I thought that was the same girl. I thought that was the kidnapped girl, as proof that anyone in that shirt is filling that position. If you see what I'm saying. Okay, so we don't know if there ever was a Megan, or whether it's just a fantasy of Howard's bizarre mental illness.
Yeah.
However, we do know that aliens are real.
Yeah.
Are they just a cynical, completely mental, and above all, derailing departure from what was otherwise a perfectly grounded psychological thriller? Or are they something more sinister, Chris? Are they something that we should be wary of if we want to venture outside of the bunker?
Well, I mean, we've already talked about the aliens a lot earlier in the show, but I mean, yeah, I think just to add something to that is that the very end of the film marred the film for me a little bit.
What, the blowing up the spaceship?
No, after that, when she decides to join the resistance against the aliens,
right?
Which again, despite it, like having the thematic link to her, now she's facing her problems head on.
Right, yeah.
Right, just so happens that the problems, rather than a argument with her boyfriend, are
an alien invasion.
Exactly. Is that just like sequel bait, like franchise bait?
Possibly. I mean, I'd like to think not. I'd like to think that they won't.
Yeah.
I'd like to think, like you said earlier, that they will do another film, because I do enjoy the films, and I hope they do something that's maybe a different alien invasion and different characters.
Yeah.
And if they're going to keep doing alien invasions, that's fine with me. But at least keep it coherent.
Because if they did do a sequel, would it still have the Cloverfield link? Do you know what I mean? Like, what would they call it? Would it be like
20 Cloverfield Lane?
Yeah, or like, I don't know, 10 Cloverfield Lane 2?
The Cloverfield Resistance.
Yeah, like, just like if it was just called, The Cellar, or Alien Space Worms, or
I'd say the J.J. Abrams marketing machine would be strong enough to market a film called The Cellar and say, by the way, this has got a lot of similarities with Cloverfield. Hey, you nerds, you like this. That satellite system that we had in the first film is actually in the second film. So, maybe they're linked. Yeah. Rather than say, they're linked by the name, but actually, there's nothing to do with each other.
Yeah, but like, why not, call it The Cellar, a Cloverfield tale. So, do you know what I mean? Like a Cloverfield story.
Or even keep it set at 10 Cloverfield Lane. Do you know what I mean? Like, There's so many ways you can tie the films together, but I think by saying Cloverfield, what is essentially Cloverfield 2, right? That's the title they're giving it. It's 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Yeah, exactly.
We all read that as Cloverfield 2.
Yeah.
They're only using that name so they can sell seats in cinemas.
But then, like, it's good that more people have seen the film, right?
Yes, but we wax lyrical all the time about I hate sequels.
Yeah.
Well, they shouldn't do a sequel to the film because it's going to be rubbish. It's going to be washed out and it's going to be a sellout. This is a good film, and if it was a sequel, it would be good. However, I don't think it was a sequel. Yeah. I think they've just crowbarred the name Cloverfield into it so that people will go and see it. So it's not. It's worse than making like Friday the 13th Part 2 because it's not even that.
Yeah.
It's making a film and then stamping it afterwards.
I agree.
Yeah. It's like if they made a new movie with Jason Bourne in it and he was a spy and they went, you know what? This is quite like the Bourne films. So let's call it Bourne Identity 3 or 4. And it has nothing to do with like the Bourne identity.
I think you're basically describing the Bourne Legacy, aren't you?
Yeah.
Which didn't have Jason Bourne in it, but it's just called the Bourne Legacy.
Yes.
Or like it'd be like going, we got this new film, 10 Star Wars Lane. And it's about, people, and it's like, it might be
So you're saying if it had been called 10 Star Wars Lane, and at the end of the film they'd gone out and there'd been things that look a bit like TIE fighters flying around, and things that look a bit like X-wings flying around, and then like they'd used these cutlasses. Like pirate swords.
Yeah.
And they were fighting with those. They look a bit like lightsabers, but they're not.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, J.J. Abrams, who directed the film, came out and said, actually, although they share a name, these films are set in a completely different fictional universe.
Right. So this film, this is a measure of how limited the link is, right?
Yeah.
So imagine she gets out of the bunker, right?
Yeah.
And she gets on top of the car, she hears the noise, right? And it's the Millennium Falcon landing, right? There is as much link, right, between it being a Cloverfield film as up until that point.
As being Star Wars.
Exactly.
Yeah. It could have been
Jaws on land, just beached. Or like a xenomorph from Alien. Like, it could have been
Bates from Misery.
Yeah. It could have been literally anything. And yet... it wasn't even Cloverfield, and they've just got. In fact, it would be worse than that. It'd be like there's a Spitfire plane being chased by another type of like dogfighting or something, and then like you say, two people fighting with cutlasses or whatever, and then the film's called 10 Stars Lane.
Yeah, it's cynical.
So that's what I think about the aliens, Joe.
Okay. Nevertheless, if you were in the film, 10 Cloverfield Lane, the non-sequel to Cloverfield. And you went outside of the shack, the bunker, and were confronted by aliens, not the aliens from the original Cloverfield, new ones. So is it better to stay in the bunker or to risk it with the aliens? Who do you think is the bigger threat, Howard or the aliens?
Well, obviously, overall, the aliens once you're outside, but... equally, the bunker seems well built enough to withstand
the alien attack.
Yeah, and they don't seem to know that they're in there.
Exactly. Are you essentially cutting off your nose to spite your face there?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
All right. So I mean, we hinted at it about how to best handle the situation, but let's do it. How would you survive if you were Michelle or Howard or Emmett in 10 Cloverfield Lane?
Well, one thing that struck me was that between Michelle and Emmett, there's never a discussion that we see, at least, over just killing Howard. Because once they've established that he's a murderer, or they suspect him to be a murderer, at least,
all bets are off, really.
Yeah, like what? Because if they believe that there's poison gas outside enough to make a boiler suit to go out there. Only one, by the way, so poor old Emma.
But their plan was to tie up Howard, essentially incapacitating him.
and get him to admit it or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, if they think that poison air is out there at all enough to make the boiler suit, then anyone going out of the bunker is going to kill the rest of them anyway.
By coming back?
No, by opening the door. Because it's
an airlock.
No, but it's not an airlock. He says it's not an airlock, but it's as good as I could do. As close to an airlock as I could get, right? And, he's worried because he says, air might have come through the hinges and all that sort of thing. Right, so it's not a perfect system.
They could use duct tape. On the doors.
All right, whose side are you on? But, so, I mean, obviously Howard thinks that, any sort of, opening the door is going to kill them all.
Yeah.
Because he says as much, basically. When, that woman's at the door. Yeah. Don't open the door because you'll kill us all.
But he also thinks space worms were invaded. And that's true.
Yeah, so exactly. To believe everything Howard says. Yeah. But why don't they kill Howard? Because if they kill Howard, right, and it's clearly not against, I'm not breaching the rule that we have about changing characters' motivations. Right,
yeah. Because you do want to survive. And he's the biggest threat.
Yeah, and because her method of survival is likely to kill them anyway. Yeah. And the way that she does survive does kill him. Yeah. Because it starts the electrical fire which kills him.
Exactly.
Right. So I'm not breaching her, character motivations. If her and Emmett just kill Howard while they're down there, as unpleasant as that is, it saves their lives, and they can continue to use the bunker for as long as whatever's going on is happening, and then because by this point the reason for leaving isn't like we need to know what's going on. It's more we need to get away from Howard.
Yeah.
So
who will eventually kill us.
Exactly. So they could have stayed down there indefinitely until the attack was over, and then people arrive and they say it's all right, you can come out now.
Importantly though, as soon as he pulls out the acid and he says, look, the game's up, why didn't they just attack him then? Just sort of like try and overpower him?
Because he has both the gun and both knives that they had.
Just hit him. I suppose one thing we didn't mention is Emmett is badly injured on his shoulder, so he can't use his right arm.
Yeah, and also the game's truly up when he finds the boiler suit.
Yeah.
Because they could...
mad, doesn't it?
Yeah. So it could be that they don't realise how dire the situation is.
Yeah.
Until it's too late. Because also, the film is made... The scene is done in a way to make you think that they've diffused the situation by Emmett saying, it's because I wanted to...
Yeah.
And then he shoots him.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But, I mean, they should have hatched a plan... Rather than a plan to leave, as they were doing, they should have hatched a plan to kill him and stay.
Yeah.
Instead.
So, when he was watching his Pretty in Pink
Exactly.
VHS,
just run the tap and then just stab him in the top of the head, like in your neck.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, well, fair enough. I can't argue with that because I was thinking the same thing watching the film. It would be much easier to kill him.
Yeah.
And if you think, what we're going to do with the body? Well, you've got a massive vat of acid. Yeah. You didn't know about it, but you do. Yeah. Well, you'd eat him. A lot of meat on him.
Yeah. Put him in the bin. Shoot.
Yeah. Where does that go?
So probably just a tank.
Vat of acid. Everything goes in the vat of acid. Okay. Well, fair enough. So, as mentioned, there is a lot of meat on Howard. He's a big guy. So, but not in a good way. I mean, not in a The Rock way.
Sure.
More in a John Goodman way.
He's not lean.
No, he's a big unit.
By the way, have you seen John Goodman's weight loss?
Yeah.
Since doing this film?
No.
Fair play to him.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say. Yeah.
Well, good.
Look it up. Google it. John Goodman weight loss.
I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to do it this second is what I'm doing.
Maybe just play some hold music while Joe looks that up.
Yeah, he has lost a lot of weight. Obviously, for health reasons, you'd assume. As well as aesthetic reasons.
Sure.
Because obviously having a high body mass index, sort of high cholesterol. I mean, being obese has a lot of health problems. And Howard, the character in the film, is obese. And we see him eating all sorts of junk throughout the film, drinking beers, drinking vodka that he made himself. He's not a healthy man by any stretch of the imagination. No. So my advice to Emmett and Michelle on How to Survive, just make him jump a lot consistently for as long as possible.
Right.
So time it so that whenever he walks around a corner, you're walking around the corner. There you go.
Not something that he can necessarily get mad at you.
No, exactly, because it's something a simple misunderstanding every time. Exactly. Make sudden loud noises, that drop a glass every so often when he's watching TV, or sneak up on him and they've got these magazines they've got, just drop the magazines and go, clumsy meat, after he's made a slapping noise behind him. Essentially,
hey Howard, why don't we make those pancakes for us again today? Yeah, lots of things, anything to get his cholesterol and or stress levels
exactly
up. Yeah,
put extra sugar in his coffee.
Yeah.
What we're aiming to do here is
my worry with this plan is that Howard is shown to be by nature a suspicious person. So any behaviour of this sort might result in him suspecting something's up.
So quite right, lingering at corners.
Yeah.
Just waiting for him to walk around there.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
sorry, Howard.
Yeah. Sugar? Hot dog?
Yeah. I don't think he'd say no though. He seems like he's hungry all the time.
Yeah.
Hey, Howard, do you want to have a hot dog eating contest?
Until one scene we haven't talked about with Howard is the taboo scene. Oh, we talked about it briefly earlier, but the bit where he's saying Santa Claus, right?
Right, yeah.
And he's going, "I'm always watching you. I know what you're doing. I watch you when you're asleep." Yeah. That's really funny. I really like it. Like, until the point where it's like pretty much confirmed that he's a child killer.
Yes.
I quite like Howard.
Really? Or you think he's just like misunderstood?
But if that was like, I'm still waiting for a film. Like, we've done quite a few films now where I'm like, I just wish it was like
a misunderstanding.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, and I think it was like Misery or The Loved Ones. We were talking about how you could just, if you just took everything the right way that you said, everything that you said, you take it the right way. You just be nice. Then actually it might be fine. Like, imagine you could potentially, if you forged an alright relationship with him, spend quite a pleasant 2 years down in the bunker.
Exactly. Because that's the time cap they sort of put on it. Is, there could be nuclear fallout which could last up to 2 years. So but 2 years with Howard could be worse. And if you were to utilise the, cholesterol, I mean, make lots of fruit salads with extra sugar. I mean, he hasn't packed a lot of healthy food, has he? I've noticed that about him.
No. Yeah. This is the best sauce I've ever had.
Yeah. As I'm not dead.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say don't join the Earth Resistance Force based on one relatively lucky break with the one alien spaceship that you've encountered, because I don't think that the tactic of always being picked up in a car and then throwing a Molotov cocktail into its open mouth
perfectly timed
is going to work every time in all cases. I don't think that's it's not like War of the Worlds where they realise that like Signs, when they realise that the aliens are allergic to water.
No, War of the Worlds works as well because they got the flu, didn't they?
Yeah, but it's not like that where they, you stumble across, like the main character stumbles across the
cure.
The way of defeating them.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you could go to the head of the Resistance and say, "Look, I've brought down one of those spaceships." Like, no, you're crazy. No one brings those down. You go, no, really. What I did was I threw one bottle of whiskey into its open mouth. Because that's the only way to describe this thing, is his mouth. And that caused a chain reaction which brought down the entire ship.
Yeah. Well, because it's obviously some sort of biological organism.
Yes.
It's got a trachea, like a mouth and thing. So it appears that the gas that it produces that causes all the burning is flammable. So presumably a single bullet to any fleshy part of that organism would cause a fire which would bring it down in 100% of the cases.
Yes.
So any fighter jets or whatever, I'm surprised that this was even a remotely successful invasion. This is even worse than like War of the Worlds, where it's like the flu, or Signs, where it's like, because the thing with Signs is that everyone was, spoilers for Signs, it's like, oh, how would the aliens not realise that water was really, it was everywhere. Like it's like the alien forces don't realise that we have many ways of causing fire, which is going to destroy their
Signs.
Forces.
Also, there's a scene where Mel Gibson or one of his neighbours has locked one of the aliens in the pantry, and it can't escape because it can't open the wooden door.
Isn't it locked?
No, I think it just can't open the handle. Or you can't punch through it or something. It's a creepy film, but shit. A shit film.
No, I think it's hard done by. Because everyone says, they wouldn't like...
70% of the Earth is water. Why would you come here?
We can't go in 70% of the Earth either. We can't
build in it.
We can't build a life there.
No, you can go in it without burning to death.
Yeah, but there's like...
Say there was a planet made of caustic soda, highly corrosive to human skin.
Yeah, but I wouldn't 30% of... Like, you don't know what situation the aliens are in. Like, it could be that they've got no other option. It's like,
are they attacking in Signs? Or are they just there?
They're like... We don't see them blowing up cities.
That's what I'm saying.
It's not Independence Day style, is it?
All I remember is the scene where it's like a Mexican kids party.
And
in the distance, one of them just walks past slightly out of focus.
Yeah. But it's very creepy.
Yeah.
And it's very well done. And like the invisible spaceship that's hovering over one of the cities, and they know that it's there because birds keep flying into it.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
But they're not attacking.
It doesn't seem to be. Anyway,
maybe we should handle Signs.
M. Night Shyamalan's 2006 film Signs. It might be earlier than that. I can't remember. 2002 maybe. Anyway, Signs.
Yeah.
There you go. Any final How to Survive thoughts for 10 Cloverfield Lane?
Not Signs. Yes. I have a couple. So obviously what Howard wants is a relationship with a daughter or a daughter figure. So my advice to Michelle is to take advantage of that. Leave wet towels lying around. Don't clean your room. Don't do any washing up. Don't take the bins out. Basically, make yourself a bit of a nuisance layabout.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because what happens with a lot of sort of rebellious teenagers is that they get kicked out of home.
Well, not even that. It's just that I think, say, when I moved out, I think my parents were like, "Oh, we're ready for that now."
Yeah. It's
like, "Oh, we want our house back now. It's been long enough."
So you hope that it would get to the point where if you then proposed leaving the bunker under your own terms, then he'd be all right with it.
Howard, I'm ready to go out, make my own dent on the world, and they go, "Well, we're looking forward to that."
Yeah.
I think eventually the parent reaches the decision that it's best if the child does go out and find their own place, because having that many adults under one roof is rarely a good idea.
Yeah. Of course, we've mentioned earlier in this podcast how we would say, putting it lightly, that Howard is an authoritarian figure and also quite unpredictable.
Well, so you're saying that if you were to leave, say, your bathroom towel on the floor of your bedroom, he'd come in and potentially shoot you.
Yeah.
Put you in a vat of acid head first or something.
Yeah.
But he does want the daughter. He that's what. So if he said, "Look, Dad, I'll call you Dad now, Howard. I think we've come that far in our relationship.
Yeah.
Look, Dad, I respect you. I'm just going through a bit of a phase in my life now where I find it hard to concentrate on things like taking the bins out or wash it up after dinner. I'd much rather sit in my room and sulk." And he'd go, "Well, that's just typical teenager stuff."
Yeah.
But it doesn't make it any more relatable, does it? And it eventually will push him away. What do you think?
I stand by my. It's the unpredictability factor of Howard that is causing me.
But do you think you could wind your parents up enough with? I mean, you're a 25-year-old man now, so it's not likely to happen now. But back when you were a teenager, is there anything you could have done just by being a bit lazy that they'd kill you?
No, but my parents also didn't build an underground bomb shower, and they didn't routinely dissolve people in vats of acid.
True.
So,
my parents did.
Exactly.
Did have bomb showers in the acid.
Your dad, Howard, he's
nuts. Nuts on the yeah. Ever since my sister
disappeared.
Yeah. One final thought. How old do you think he is?
60s.
60s. So entering the autumn of his years.
Yeah.
My advice to anyone, Michelle, Emmett, anyone who finds themselves living there.
Yeah.
Move things around a bit. So when he goes in the shower, if he's sort of just unloaded the dishwasher, for instance, reload the dishwasher. So you'll go, "Didn't I just do that?" And you go, No.
Put the dishes in the shower.
Yeah, just turn the stove off when he's still cooking.
Yeah.
So that he'll be stirring the sauce for ages, going, this isn't cooking at all. And he'll realise it was off, and he goes, "Fucking hell, I'm losing my mind."
Again, my concern is that conspiracy theorists...
Here's what I do. The VHS tapes that he insists you put back in their sleeve, right? Put them back in their sleeves, fine, but rewind them all or fast forward them to the end. So he's a meticulous man. He's obviously rewound them after watching them.
Yeah.
Put them to the end. He's gonna go, I'm sure I rewound these. I can't believe it. What's going on? Eventually, you build up enough of these sort of things to convince him that he's got dementia. And since he's very keen to have this parent-child relationship, you convince him to hand over power of attorney, including control of the bunker,
day-to-day running of the bunker.
Exactly, the gun and the keys
of the family home.
Exactly, because he's become essentially
incapable of taking care of it himself. Again, I'd return to the fact that Howard is a conspiracy theorist.
Right.
So he is by nature suspicious of things.
Yes.
I would estimate that he's more likely to jump to the conclusion that people are... because one thing that is a symptom of people with dementia is a suspicion.
But he doesn't actually have dementia.
No, I know, but imagine if
he has got the suspicion.
Exactly, yeah. So that's bad enough with people who have actually got dementia.
Yeah.
But when he has the because also dementia people, it's probably quite difficult for them to like know themselves that they're thinking clearly.
Right, yeah.
Like, or actually have certainty of that. Like, they might think that they are, but aren't actually thinking clearly.
Well, so I'd say to you that you're not making any sense. You go, of course I am.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Well, but he would also have that.
Because he is thinking clearly.
Because he is thinking clearly. So, like, at least with a person with dementia, you'd be able to be like, oh, you're not thinking clearly because you're standing on the coffee table and you're wearing your trousers on your head. Or whatever. I know all about dementia.
I mean, no offence to anyone who's got dementia in their lives.
Whereas Howard is a sane, to some degree, and rational man.
Yeah.
But I think, again, he's more likely to go, oh, the people who live in this bunker are trying to make me think I've got dementia. I'll go shoot them.
Yeah, and then dip them in acid for good measure.
Then take an alien worm daughter instead.
Imagine that. Oh, that's the sequel.
11 Cloverfield Lane.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, next door,
John Goodman's brother.
John Goodman with his flappy acid hand.
Yeah. We've had one letter in on the email, HowToSurviveShow@gmail.com, from Hannah, who says, I would have stayed in the hut and acted really adult and not childlike, but still very respectful and loving towards John Goodman.
Okay.
Again, we've said this. He is a murderer.
I
wonder
it's
how
only
far
I feel like it's only a matter of time. That's the problem with this idea.
Yeah.
And also he's I think he kills Emmett because he doesn't adhere to his plan of like the father-daughter bunker bond.
He's an interloper, isn't he?
Yeah. So I think you got more chance of keeping him on side if you continue to be daughter-like.
Fair enough.
And if you'd like to email in, obviously the email address as ever is howtosurviveshow@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And you can tweet us, don't forget now, and the Twitter handle is @howtosurvivepod.
Yes. So that's about all we've got time for this week. Reminder again, the email is howtosurviveshow@gmail.com, and you can leave us a review on iTunes or whatever you're listening on. I think we're available on most podcast directories now. Acast and
any and all podcast.
Yeah, so whatever you're listening on, be sure to leave a 5-star review, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah,
you've just sat through an hour of it, of amazing high quality entertainment
for free.
Exactly. Either leave a 5-star review or pay up.
Listen, we just recorded an hour of podcast for you. I think we deserve a little bit of your respect.
And with that in mind, perhaps it is time to wrap up. Chris?
Okay, I'm just going to stop
recording. No, don't stop the recording! You're going to get yourself killed!